everyone, welcome back. My name is Lynn Wilson. I'm glad you're joining me today. Welcome to my home. We're going to have a little chat about living on less. So we've had a number of, over the past 2 years, I've done a number of videos on stockpiles and pantries and budget things and frugal things and all the rest. We all want to save money. There are people that have reached out to me, some via email, some messenger, and some in the comments of saying, how do I get started? What do I do? When it comes to a pantry or a stockpile, I'm overwhelmed with it. I had one person say they've never had one. They never felt the need to have one, but all of a sudden they are now after watching different people's videos. And how do I get started? What do I do? Kudos to you for wanting to make a change in your life. Thumbs up. Don't let anybody say to you, well, you've never done this before? Don't listen to that. Anytime we make a change for the positive in our life, we're on a better road. We're on a new journey, and I think that is a fantastic thing. But it can be overwhelming. You listen to this one and they tell you, you must have a well-stocked pantry. Well, what does well-stocked mean? Another one will say, oh, you have to spend X amount of dollars, or you have to have certain types of containers. You have to go to certain stores, maybe the big box stores, or maybe this store versus that store. If you have money, if you have time, if you have space, and if you have the way, the energy and the way to get around and do all this, that's fine. But there are people that don't have money. Some people don't drive. Some people don't have a car. And I was listening to someone the other day, and they said they live literally across the street from Dollar Tree, and they grocery shop at the Dollar Tree as if it's their grocery store. In this particular Dollar Tree, there is a freezer and a good refrigerated section. And I would know many people that would go, oh, how could you do that? No fresh produce, no fresh vegetables. This person doesn't drive. This person doesn't have a lot of money. And this is the only store that they can literally walk to and buy food. There are people, you might be one of those people, that literally can't do any more than that. People do live paycheck to paycheck. Sometimes it's not by choice. It's just where you are in life. One thing I've had to remind myself every time I get myself in a pickle or I'm in a moment, this is only a moment. This is not the rest of my life. This is not for eternity. This is for today. This is for now. Maybe it's a season that you're in. But your goal is always to better yourself, find a way to do things better, find a different solution. So I do want to start off by saying, if you are in need of food and you do not have money to provide food for yourself and or your family, please don't hesitate to go to your church, talk to your pastor, and let him know, hey, we need help. Talk to friends and neighbors if you feel comfortable. I also know that's uncomfortable. I know when we went through our time and we had no food and we had no money, the people that were closest to us at the time in our family would have questioned why and how we got ourselves in that position first, and then would have offered food. I emotionally could not have handled why and how did you get, listen, that's not helping me. I need food for my family. So I understand friends and family are not always where you'd want to be with in a situation of going to and saying, hey, I need help. But go to the food pantries, go to the food banks. They're readily available. They give you a box of your basics for the week. Don't hesitate to go if you need it. Okay, enough said on that. So for those of you that are saying, what do I do? How do I do it? So I wrote down a few tips. First of all, living on less. We as Americans especially, I can't, say for Europe and Asia and all the rest of the world. I can tell you Americans, most of us live on way more than we need. There is something to be said for a Thanksgiving meal or a Christmas meal. We just had Easter, and you indulge and you enjoy, and the turkey and the ham and the potatoes and the vegetables, and that's wonderful. That's a treat. We don't need that 7 days a week. My husband and I have been in times where you know, things are tight this week and I'm trying to like use what I have and stretch it out. And so what I would recommend is don't put things in bowls on the table and say, okay, everybody have dinner. Even if you're a family of one, don't put the pasta in a bowl and take from it. What you want to do is you want to portion out your plates. So I have found that that works a whole lot better. So if we have a meat, a pasta, and a vegetable, let's just say, I will put portions out for, my husband gets a little bit more, I get a little bit less, and then our kids, when they were younger, portion out the size that they would need that would be satisfactory. We don't need a lot of food. If there's a little left in the pot and you want to say there's some leftovers, my kids would always say, is there more in the pot? They knew to ask. I just learned to put portions on the plate. It was just something that I did. I think it was to stretch what we had when we didn't have much. And I could use a smaller plate versus, you know, like a salad plate versus a dinner plate. If we really didn't have a whole lot and I put it on a salad plate, it looked full versus putting the small amount on a dinner plate. And then you notice how much plate, you know, empty plate is still there. So little tricks like that you can do. I think that's important. But my kids learned to say, is there more in the pot? That meant they were hungry. They wanted seconds. And I could say, yes, there's a little bit more in the pot. Or tonight, nope, the pot is empty. Oh, okay. We tried to make it a rule to have crackers or cereal as an extra alternative for fillers. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich, something like that. My husband grew up with 5 boys in the family. And this was dinner. There wasn't a lot. There was enough. There was enough to feed the family, but that was it. There was no leftovers. And if the boys were hungry, they could make a peanut butter sandwich. So I think that's a good way of looking at it for ourselves as well. Get enough at dinner. We do not need to eat as much as we do. So pre-portion your meals and live on less. I don't know if I shared it in one of my last videos. I can't remember, but I'll share it again just in case. I had a friend who was homeless because of circumstances he put himself in, but he decided to get out of it. He wanted to make a change in his life. And when he did, everything he ate half of what he got. And I remembered lots of stories around that, but when he finally met his wife, he taught her to do the same. We're only going to eat half of what's on our plate, and we're going to do half of this and half of that. And the other half goes in the freezer or the fridge for another day. And at first I thought, boy, that sounds kind of like stingy that he's not, you know, wasn't that he forced this on them, but he taught her a lesson that he learned. You don't need as much as you think you're going to eat. And that other half was for the next day. Well, what happened is years later, they just built their life around this. He eventually died. And when he died, because they did things in halves, there was enough money. He was able to have a house bought and purchased for her. They also had an additional house they purchased for a rental. And that income was able to support her after he passed away. And all based on doing things in half. So portioning things out is really good. I also think that using our leftovers, you know, how many times now for a family of 1 or 2, this is very easy to do. You have a little piece of a tomato, a little bit of onion, maybe you got a little this, little that. Maybe make a saute, put it over pasta or rice or something. But being creative with, you don't have to follow a recipe. Recipes were made from somebody who came up with an idea based on these items that were in front of them. But if you have little bits and pieces, if you can pull it together to make a small portion of a meal, great. If not, maybe those things can be put together in a sandwich bag or a small container that you can put in your freezer that you can use later on for a pot of soup or anything like that. When you're hungry, when you don't have a lot, when you don't have a lot of money, when you don't have a lot of food, if you've been in that situation, you will understand what I'm saying. I had someone that I had called them. They were on my heart, and I said, how things going? Oh, not bad. I said, how things really going? Well, you know, and then I found that they've been living on popcorn for breakfast and lunch because they didn't have enough food, so they did popcorn for breakfast and lunch, and then they ate dinner. is that a well-balanced meal? Well, plain popcorn. There was no salt or butter on it. It was literally plain popcorn. That's not unhealthy for you. It is healthy. It's healthy enough. And would I suggest that for 2 meals a day? Not necessarily. Is it the well-balanced, fruits, vegetables, and, the food group? It's not that either. But they had to do this for several weeks to get them over a hump. They had popcorn breakfast, popcorn for lunch, and then they did it the best they could with dinner. You're not always in a position to have a super well-balanced meal. Again, it's not forever. This is for the moment. Maybe it's for a day. It could be a week. It could be for a short season. Hopefully not too long of a season. Do what you need to do. If you can get to the food bank periodically to get some fresh fruits and fresh vegetables, to get that in your diet as well, I would highly recommend it. Right now is the season, at least in our area in New Jersey, depending on where you live, to start growing your own garden. I just watched a video today on how to plant potatoes in a cardboard box. I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a shot. I've never grown potatoes before, but he said it's the easiest thing to do, and I want to try it. I am not a super successful person at gardening, mostly because I don't have the time to invest in it. And by the time the summer rolls around and we're at the hottest time in July, mostly July and early part of August is my busiest season at work. I come home, I'm wiped out. I don't have the time to care for it. Before you ask, no, my husband cannot help me. He cannot be in the sun. And no, my youngest son cannot help me for various reasons. I get a lot of people asking, why don't they help? Both of them are on disability for a purpose. And it's not just because they're home means that they can do all. No, they cannot. They do things in other ways. So without going into great detail, they help where they can. But when I have things that they can't do, it just is what it is. And that's the way our family rolls. So I want to have another garden this year, but think about it. Growing some tomatoes, some cucumber, some lettuce, maybe some zucchini, whatever you want, whatever you like. Plant a garden so you can have fresh fruits and vegetables in your own backyard. Consider doing that. Okay, and learn to cook simple. You don't need elaborate meals, especially when you want to live on less and you don't have a lot of money. So some of the people that have been commenting on my one of my videos that I did about what does a stockpile mean to you mentioned when they had to move, it was a nightmare. I heard somebody said they were overwhelmed. Another person said they got rid of everything because it was too much to move. They had too much food. And I know I'm going to get people saying, you can't have too much food. You do for you. I do for me. You do what's best for your family. Family of one or more, you do what's best for you. And I totally get, if I had to move right now with the amount of food that I have in my overflow pantry and stockpile, I don't know how I would do it. It would be a nightmare and it would be overwhelming. Now, I have mentioned we have transitioned and we've moved into a new place, I guess you'd say, for our pantry, and I will be showing that to you. It is not elegant. It's not fantastic. It's not like this, the angels are not going to sing when you see my new pantry area. But it's convenient. It's more visible to me, and it's just making my life a lot easier, and I'll explain that in the up and coming video. But I do have a lot of food. Let's get back to the basics. You're starting off with a brand new pantry. You've never had a pantry. What do? Don't get overwhelmed. These are the basic things. These are some of the basic things I would recommend. I would highly recommend all-purpose flour. You can get wheat flour. You can get flour. We're talking basic budgets for broke people. You don't have a whole lot. You don't have a lot of money. I would recommend you get all-purpose flour. What can you do with all-purpose flour? You can make pancakes. You can make biscuits. You can make, I make fry bread, and it's salt, it's flour, and it's water. That's it. You don't need yeast. You don't need anything else. That is all you need. You can use the same recipe, and if you don't want to fry the bread in oil, you can roll it out thin and you can make flatbread or like a tortilla with just water, flour, and salt, a pinch of salt. So speaking of salt, you'd want to have salt. Salt will enhance anything you eat. I'm not saying dump a whole thing of salt, but a pinch of salt here and a pinch of salt there will take something really plain like a flatbread. You add a pinch of salt and it will make a difference. Another thing I recommend is some type of oil, whether it be a vegetable oil, a canola oil, something along that line. Coconut oil, yes, that's wonderful, but not everybody can afford that. Avocado oil and olive oil, they are better for you. I totally agree, but they're also a lot more money. This is going to be based on your budget and what you can afford. But something plain, like plain old vegetable oil or a canola oil is cheap. It will get you by for a while. Another thing I would recommend is either do some type of a rice. Now, I'm not a huge person when it comes to like lover of rice. Our family is not. A rice or even a pasta. Get a pasta. Now, I will recommend if you're going to go with pasta, get your elbow macaroni. You get a whole lot more bang for your buck than if you get spaghetti or penne or anything like that. You get elbow, you get a lot more in the box. It stretches more. You could probably double a meal just from a box of elbow versus getting a box of penne or bow tie or anything like that. I also recommend that you have some type of sugar, like plain white sugar. Have some sugar. You can add sugar also to the flour and a little water and a little salt and make more of a sweet biscuit if you wanted something for breakfast. I would recommend that. I would recommend any types of canned vegetables. Now, we're talking pantry. We're not talking refrigerator. We're talking about what can I have for basic things in my pantry. How do I get started? I get started with flour, some type of an oil, some salt, rice or pasta, some sugar, cans of vegetables, cans of meat. Whatever meat floats your boat, that's what you want to go with. And if possible, I'd also get a thing of bouillon cubes, just like this. Why would I get bouillon cubes? Because at the end of the week, at the end of 3 or 4 days, you can take all the bits and pieces that you have of a little bit of meat, a little bit of a vegetable, add a bouillon to a pot of boiling water, throw those meats and vegetables in there. You can throw some rice or pasta in there and you can make yourself some soup that will sustain you for the next day or two. It's cheap, it's easy, and it is the best way to use up bits and pieces of leftovers that you're like, what in the world do I do with this little piece of chicken and half a tomato and I got 2 carrots left over and half a stalk of celery. If you're a family of 1 or 2 and you throw that in a pot with some bouillon, you're in good shape. So these are the basics that I would recommend. And what you see here now is going to be different depending on the store, but I mentioned Dollar Tree. For $10, you can get flour, bouillon, sugar, oil, canned meat, canned vegetable, a pasta or a rice, and salt. Now it's $1.25, but you can get all of that for exactly $10. If you were to go to Walmart and, sizes might be a little different than you would get at Dollar Tree, but to give you an idea, that would come to $11.22. So around $10, you can start a basic pantry to get you started. Now this is basic. This is not the best pantry you can have. This is to get you started. You've just moved, you have nothing, you want to start. How do I do it? It's overwhelming. I don't have a lot of money. If you have $10, you can start a basic pantry on $10. Don't forget to live on less, portion out your food, maybe eat half of what you thought you were going to eat, only eat half of it, put the other half away. Listen, if you're starving and you're hungry, half is better than nothing. And that might mean that you have to put the other half away and go to bed a little bit hungry, but know that you have another meal for tomorrow. Depending on the situation you're in, hit the food banks, hit the food pantries, reach out to your church, your friends, your neighbors, your family, whatever you need to do. Definitely know it is not always going to be well balanced. I'm not saying that's the way to live, but sometimes when you're in hard times, you do the best you can with what you have for the season that you're in. And think simple. Your pantry does not have to be this humongous, mind-blowing experience, especially if you're just starting out or you're restarting or you're trying to get back on your feet. Keep it simple and cook simple. I hope that's helpful to some of you out there. I would appreciate any comments that you have on maybe another item you would recommend in a very basic pantry, or what could you pull together on the cheap for a meal. Love, love, love hearing from you. Thanks so much. We'll catch you all on the next video.